I don't think we've ever seen a shoe change so much between iterations, but now we're on the 3rd edition. So what is this shoe for and how does it fare? Today we're reviewing the Brooks Hyperion Max 3. What's up everybody, I'm Eric McIntyre, aka Rad Dad Bod, and you're watching Rad Dad Bod TV, where we review running shoes. Today, like I said, we're going to be reviewing the Hyperion Max 3, and if it's your first time watching my videos, you may notice some timestamps below. Feel free to jump around to the various parts of this review, but if you do so, I would sure appreciate it if you come back and watch the full thing when you get a sec, so I put a lot of time and effort into these videos. And if you've been a viewer for a while but you haven't yet hit that subscribe button, please consider doing so today and turning on those notifications so you get notified every time I drop a new video, which is typically Monday through Friday. Now, a quick plug before we get into any details on the shoes. I am planning on running the Tokyo Marathon in 2026, and as such, I have submitted a bid to raise $4,000 for charity. Now, once I get the official word that I have been accepted, I will post a donation link in the description of all of my videos so you can donate through those means. But if you'd like to help me get ahead and start raising now, please consider using the thanks button below to donate directly through the comments. On top of any donations that I receive, I'm actually donating the proceeds or the revenue from the channel for June, July, and August entirely towards charity, and donating any commissions that I generate through my affiliate links below. So if you need some new half tights and you've had your eye on the wall of Codistance half tights, or if you need new running fuel, please consider using my links below, as any commissions also generated in June, July, and August will go directly towards charity for the Tokyo Marathon. Now, in the event that I don't end up getting in, which I do feel like is unlikely given my bid, then I am still committed to donating all proceeds, donations, and revenue from the channel and commissions towards charity for June, July, and August. I will just choose a different charity that ideally benefits men's mental health, and will make the donation there. If you'd like to follow along with the donation tracking, please consider watching my weekly vlogs, which I drop every Monday, where I will give updates on both my training, my life, as well as where we're at in our fundraising for Tokyo. Now, quick disclaimers and disclosures. I did receive this shoe from Brooks for the purpose of review. That being said, I'm not paid, I'm not given talk tracks, talking points, no one watches the video beforehand, and all thoughts are entirely my own. With that out of the way, let's talk about the intended use of this shoe. Now, the intended use of the Hyperion Max line is honestly one of the more confusing intended uses, because each shoe was so different, like I said in the introduction. The Hyperion Max 1 was really kind of almost like a max cushion responsive shoe. It didn't really have plate elements. It wasn't super clear like, hey, is this for speed work, or is this for long runs? Is it for easy runs? There was not very clear direction. But then in the 2, they did add a plastic plate and made it a little bit more race-like and streamlined, but it still kind of sat in between like a lightweight plated and a max cushion plated shoe, where it was unclear like, hey, is this for short, fast speed sessions, or is this for like long run workouts and marathon training? With the 3, we know exactly what the shoe is. It is a true Supertrainer meant for marathon training, meant to support your marathon paces and really kind of take the bulk miles of those long run workouts. As such, that's how we're going to be evaluating it today. Now, the shoe comes in at $200, which is pretty in line with the Supertrainer category, though expensive. But so it has come up from the $180 last year. We're now sitting at a full $200. Now, from a specs perspective, the shoe comes in at 9.9 ounces, which is 280 grams, which is heavy, and it's not where I want this type of shoe to be for that Supertrainer category, but it's not uncommon to be around that weight. You know, when you get a lot of foam underfoot, you put a plate in it and all that, the shoe is going to probably be a little bit heavy. Speaking of that foam, from a stack perspective, you have 46 in the heel, 40 in the forefoot for a 6mm drop. So, you know, that is going to be a lot of foam underfoot. It is a true max cushion Supertrainer. Now, from a fit perspective, lengthwise, I do feel like it fits true to size, but from a width perspective, I think you have like a wide overall heel. Otherwise, it's pretty snug through that midfoot area. I do still think it's got some good stretch, and so it could be wide foot friendly, but I think that the tongue, which I'll talk about in the upper, just kind of locks you in, and it feels more snug than the width actually is. And then I feel like it's got a pretty fair overall volume toe box. I would say it's more of a standard overall toe box there. Moving to that upper, you have a breathable mesh upper with a double gusseted tongue. And it's a really interesting upper because, you know, you have like this really breathable mesh there. You can see kind of through the shoe. It has kind of like a race streamlined fit here. And then when you get to the heel area, you have a more traditional heel cup with lots of cushion there, but then kind of a knit overlay over top. The other thing is you have a knit tongue that has kind of some weird cushion in it. So the tongue itself is like, it's almost like you have a booty upper through kind of the midfoot area, and then you have these mesh, like this panel overlays over top. The resulting feel is, one, snug, right? It really does lock you in. You feel very, very secure in the shoe. It's not necessarily hard to get on, but you do feel a lot kind of here in this midfoot area. You know, the traditional kind of cushioning there in the heel keeps your heel counter or keeps your heel locked in place. And then, you know, you do have a little bit more room or breathability there in the toe box. The upper is comfortable, but in a lot of ways, it does feel like almost like overkill a little bit. I'm not sure why they put kind of like, and I talked about this, I think, in the comparison video or a comparison video for the shoe. They put like filling inside the knit tongue, so it's almost like a beanbag chair where it kind of like can move around, or like a pillow where you can push the stuffing around. And it just feels like a little bit too much. It does create a little bit warmer overall experience in the shoe than I would have expected. It still does breathe pretty well, and I've run in it, you know, in the heat and whatnot, and it's not like my feet get super, super hot. But it's just a little bit more than I was expecting when I put on the shoe, especially compared to previous models. I absolutely loved the Hyperion Max 2 upper. I thought it was the perfect blend of like lightweight and function, as well as just kind of streamlined. All in all though, you get really good lockdown in the shoe, and it is a comfortable overall upper. So despite being a little bit much, I do like it for the most part. Now moving to the midsole, you have a dual layer or dual density midsole. You have the DNA Gold on the top, which is that PEBA base, the new PEBA base foam that Brooks is using in their shoes. And then you have DNA Flash nitrogen infused there in the bottom, which is going to be that supercritical EVA, kind of the foam that they used previously in their super shoes. It's a little bit firmer, right? You get that softer, more responsive PEBA foam up top, and then a slightly firmer yet responsive foam underneath. You also have a plastic plate in this shoe, so it's not a carbon fiber plate, but a plastic plate right there that runs through the two layers. And you can see that there is a pretty significant medial cutout there in the shoe as well. Now, I've heard a lot of people having concerns about that medial cutout, because the Hyperion Max 2, in my mind, was one of the most stable speed-oriented shoes out there. In fact, my wife, who runs Instability shoes, I got her a pair of those for her speed workouts because I felt like they were really, really stable and still gave some responsiveness, right? The good news is I didn't really notice much with that medial cutout, right? For a number of reasons. For one, you still have that slightly firmer foam underfoot. You also have the plastic plate that sits directly under the more responsive bouncy foam right there. That's going to give a little bit more of a base where you're not going to notice that medial cutout that much, right? It still gives the shoe a little bit more flexibility, but it's not something that cause some major like additional pronation. Like it's not naturally or inherently unstable. I still don't know if I would highly recommend it to those with stability needs, but I think it's worth trying, right? If you have a good return policy at your local store, I think it's worth trying out and seeing if it works for you, if you like the Hyperion Max 2, because you still get that DNA Flash underfoot. Now, as far as this foam though, it is surprisingly bouncy, right? I have found that a lot of these Max Cushion Super Trainers end up being kind of clunky, right? They almost try to be stability shoes because they're trying to give stability to make up for the extra stack height, which a lot of times does make a shoe inherently unstable, especially if it's more of a responsive like PEBA-based foam. But what I found with this shoe is I wouldn't call it smooth, but I would very much call it very like punchy and responsive and bouncy, right? Usually the weight of a Super Trainer, it really puts me off, and it does, like, I would rather do a long run workout in like a lower stack plated shoe, or even a super shoe, like an older super shoe that I've already raced in, right? And do my long runs in those because they're a little bit more nimble, and sometimes the Super Trainers kind of weigh me down. The responsiveness and bounciness underfoot with the Hyperion Max 3 is a lot of fun, and I found that even as my stride began to fatigue, because I was getting a lot of return from the shoe, I didn't really slow down naturally. It didn't really break down my stride. It actually felt very comfortable and very supportive. So I am really a big fan of how that feels underfoot. And what's nice is, because you do have that firmer layer underfoot, yet you still have a soft, layer up top, like I found that it is very pace versatile, and I think this could be a really, really good option for people to race in if they want a shoe that has a little bit more support, that has, you know, some nice cushion underfoot, that's gonna, you know, that's gonna support you across various paces. Like, this is a shoe that, you know, I don't mind warming up in and then getting directly into my workout, because really, like, both the geometry as well as the stack underfoot, as well as just the foams that they use, they're really fun, they're comfortable, they're bouncy. Like, it is a very nice experience underfoot, to the point where so far through the first half of the year, not that I've tested a ton of Supertrainers this year, but I could see this one landing up top because it is just a lot of fun and very bouncy. You know, it feels to me almost like a slightly firmer Cielo X1, right? Where, you know, you just got a lot of that bounce and that responsiveness, yet you still had some really good stability underfoot. Now, moving to the outsole, you have the Road Tack rubber underfoot. And this version of Road Tack, I did have a little bit of slipping issues underfoot. Nothing like crazy, but there were a few times where, after running through some water, some mud, different things, that I felt a little bit of slippage on the road. So that is something to watch out for. You know, test it in appropriate weather and climate, depending on what you're going to be using it for. The other thing is, there's some weird kind of rubbing there on the lateral side, just above the rubber placement. So I do have to wonder if some of that exposed foam, like if the rubber had just extended a little bit more, we would have been fine, but you can see it's kind of eating away at the shoe there. But the outsole, so long as it is dry out, it does a good job. And I felt like they did a good job of you know, putting enough rubber on there and having it be thin enough where you still get some pretty good grip, not amazing grip, pretty good grip, but without adding too much extra weight to the shoe, because honestly, like 10 ounces, 9.9 ounces is probably the most I would want in a Supertrainer personally. Now, as far as who's the shoe for, I kind of already talked about it. I don't necessarily think it has the exact same use case as the Hyperion Max 2. I do think, though, that you could do speed work in the shoe. You know, initially when I did my comparison, I was hesitant to say that. Like, I actually think it's fast enough. I think you get enough return. I think, yes, it's heavy, but there's some good pickup in the shoe. I think you could use this as an all-around speed day shoe, especially if you're someone who wants more underfoot, who needs a lot more support, right? Not necessarily stability, but support in terms of lots of cushion and, you know, something that's not going to be overly squishy either, right? It's responsive, but it's not overly squishy. So I do think that this should be a viable race option for a lot of people who aren't ready or don't feel comfortable in carbon-plated shoes. It's going to support you through a variety of paces, and I think you could race in it, you know, all the way down to the 5K, depending on your stride and depending on how you want to use the shoe. So ultimately, you know, like, just some final thoughts. I'm a big fan of the Hyperion Max 3. I was skeptical because the Hyperion Max 2 I liked but didn't love, at least the midsole feel. I really like the new edition of the DNA Gold, and I really like what they're doing with this shoe overall. I think it's definitely a huge step in the right direction for the Supertrainer category. It's now a true Supertrainer, and I really like what Brooks is doing, and they're really trying to innovate, which I love. I hope and pray that the Hyperion 4, though, not Max 4, Hyperion 4 goes back to more of a lightweight trainer, because I do feel like there's a little bit of a gap in their lineup now because of that. But ultimately, really awesome shoe, a lot of fun. Brooks knocked it out of the parks with this one, in my opinion, but shoes are individual, so just because I like it doesn't mean you will either. Now, if you stuck around this far, I sure appreciate you. Please let me know in the comments what you'd like to know about this shoe, what questions you have, or what I could be doing better to make these more entertaining for each and every one of you. And if you watched this far and you haven't hit the subscribe button, please consider doing so today and turning on those notifications to get notified every time I drop a new video. Lastly, quick plug again for the Tokyo Marathon. If you'd like to donate to the channel, please consider using the thanks button below, or just using any of the affiliate links in the description below, as all donations, all revenue, all commissions generated in June, July, and August are going towards charity regardless. And just to wrap up, as always, I'll leave you with a question, which is, are you happy about the changes to the Hyperion Max line? If not, what would you have liked to see? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks, everybody.